Okay, so good morning, and it's my pleasure again to welcome you all to this online summer workshop. Again, because we took a look at all the registrations, and many of you are participating in all the sessions, right? It's not that you're just joining for one, and some of you may be just joining for the sessions of your interest. So, on behalf of Azim Premji University, Bhopal, special welcome to this online summer workshop. And why I'm thanking my colleagues is they are the ones who designed this and they're the ones who did it on campus at the Bhopal for some students. And then we thought, why can't we take it pan India, right? Or it could be anywhere in the world. Why don't we talk about these interesting themes and share it with the larger world? And that's why we did this session. And to introduce myself, my name is Rajgopal and I coordinate outreach for the university. And outreach, what we mean is we're trying to build awareness about the kind of higher education that we are interested in, that Azim Premji University believes in. And in that context, we thought we should also interact with school students, talk about some themes within school subjects, right? That's the background of this. And I'm just going to share so that
Sure.
people, if you can be on mute, that would be great. I'm just going to share a screen so that you know what we have covered so far and you get an idea of the context of these workshops. I'm just going to share the screen before I invite the somebody's asking. Yeah, so we started this on Tuesday, right? Where we're calling it summer workshop for high school students, and we started with language. I think that's the language is the window for everything. And we did some interesting sessions on comics and the ghazal in the English. And yesterday, kind of shifted gears. We looked at the subject of biology, but through the lens of aliens, not aliens that is like a jadoo that you watch see in a movie or something that comes in a spaceship, but it aliens that are not native species but are amongst us. And second session was on what we call interspecies hybrids, and it was in a nice storytelling format. And today's is kind of connected. It may look all disconnected, but it's kind of connected. So we're going to talk about history, but we're going to talk about environmental history. So you can read a quick summary of what the session is all about, and we take a quick small break, and we will rejoin at around 10:45. This time is tentative. Yesterday there were so many questions, so we had to take it to 11 o'clock, and then we're going to have another session on how do we really understand history or explore environmental history through archives. And here was a special term called visual archives that Ajay is going to do. Right? Not able to read the messages. It's all good morning. Yes, somebody's asking when you'll get the certificates. Don't worry, you'll get the certificates, but just focus on the session. Or on that short introduction, I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to invite my colleague. The first session is Ayushi. I'm taking them, calling them by their first name. They're all trained academics. Ayushi Dhawan is an environmental historian, right? She's not just an historian, but an environmental historian, and she's interested in understanding the movement of hazardous waste from the global north to the global south. I don't know whether she's going to talk about that today, but on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Ayushi, and that's why students are here. So over to you, Ayushi. I'll be behind the scenes, and then the stage is yours. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, perfect. Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Very clear.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. A very good morning. I know it's 10 a.m., 10:05, but I'm glad a lot of people have made it for the session. I'm Ayushi Dhawan, and I'm assistant professor of history at Azim Premji University, and I'm talking to you all from Bhopal today. Well, when I tell people that I'm an environmental historian, they're often surprised and confused. I often get asked, what's environmental history? And I get that. That's a perfectly reasonable response, right? Environmental history as a subject, as a subdiscipline, began in the 1970s. And at that time, especially in the United States, it was the first Earth Day that was being celebrated over there. And uh, they called it the Environmental History Day, or the Earth Day. And it was an American concept, but it eventually spread to other parts of the world. So environmental history is a subdiscipline of history, and it studies humans and their interaction with the environment. As Rajgopal was telling in the introduction, that for my that have worked on hazardous waste. So in my PhD project, I was working on shipbreaking in Alang. That's a small village in Gujarat. I don't know if any of you is familiar with that. I'd love to hear in the Q&A or reflections if you want to talk more about it. Today, I'm not focusing on that, but a related problem of waste. Um, so we will be talking mostly about municipal waste today. And I'd like to begin this session by asking you all a question. And the question is, could any one of you tell me what happens when you toss waste into the dustbin? Like, once you've tossed it, what happens next? If anyone wants to share their responses.
Doesn't it go to the landfill?
Yes, it does go to the landfill. Yes, very true. Someone wrote it gets dumped in a waste yard. Yeah, absolutely. But there are several processes before that, right?
Yes,
Uh,
they go through like there is they're segregated.
yes,
For
absolutely.
e-waste and then this dry waste and then they're tossed in that dumped later on.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, thank you. Exactly. So once you throw something into your dustbin, um, in India, we generally do not segregate. We have started to promote this practice of segregation, but it's still at a minimal stage. And the practice of segregation is very important, and you'll get to know in a few minutes why. So once you dump waste in your dustbin, it is then collected by a person that comes to your door, and the waste is picked up. And from there, there are people specifically dedicated for the task of segregation, right? And then it goes to the landfill. There's a truck that takes it to the nearest landfill. So you might be curious to know how exactly a landfill looks, right? So these are two images of landfills. One is in Delhi and the other is in Mumbai. The Delhi one is called Bhalswa landfill, and the one in Mumbai is the Unar landfill, a very famous landfill actually. It has also appeared a lot in popular culture. There are books based on that. There's also a short documentary based on it. So if you're interested, I can share that with you later. So these are how landfills look like in India as of now. But you know, there's a story to that. So now the other question that arises is, do you know what are the signs of prosperity, right? The increasing contents of your dustbin. The more you prosper, the more you can consume. The more you can consume, the more you can waste, right? The more waste you generate. So that is the reason why cities in India produce so much of waste. And the numbers might surprise you. In Indian cities, produce 6 crore tons of garbage. Um, and that's a huge number. And that is why these landfills are now called mountains of waste, because they are, the waste is piling up and it's going up and up. It's increasing in height, it's increasing in width. So that's a huge thing. So today I'm specifically going to talk to you about a landfill site that was in news very recently, and that was the Ghazipur landfill site. This is a landfill site based on the border of UP and Delhi. And a few days ago, it was in news all over the news. The information that came out was that there was a fire at this landfill site, and the fire was almost uncontrollable. And it took almost more than 24 hours to tackle the fire. So, and this hasn't happened for the first time. It keeps happening. And there's a reason why fires are so common in landfills. We'll also talk about it in a minute. So landfill, as you can see in this image, is a large pit in which garbage is buried. And they are the oldest, easiest, and the cheapest ways of waste disposal in the world. And they have been, swallowing a majority of our solid waste since long before independence. And unfortunately, by now, most of them are fully saturated. That is why you see these piles growing up, right? Because they cannot take any more waste in them. So instead of being buried in the ground, the garbage at these landfills piles up in huge mountains. So if you're crossing Ghazipur in Delhi, this tall mountain of garbage is visible, clearly visible. In fact, the height of this mountain, garbage mountain, has been compared to the height of Qutub Minar, just 3 meters less, and it will reach there. And also, it has been compared to the Tower of London. It is almost equivalent to the Tower of London. So, this landfill site that was established in 1984, it got saturated by 2002. But still, the city of Delhi continues dumping large amounts of garbage in this landfill every day. So, many of these, I'll show you another image, and that is more of an aerial image, and you can see, how it looks like from the top. So yeah, many of India's landfills are ticking time bombs where accidents like fires are common. The Ghazipur landfill site has caught fire several times, as I was saying, and the reason for this fire is the rotting garbage that produces methane, right? A combustible gas that, when comes in contact with heat, scorching heat levels, then it produces fire. So even without any spark, a fire can be produced because there's so much methane coming out of the waste that is being decomposed. So, and apart from fires, imagine if a fire, I'll show you another image before I continue. Sure. Yeah. So this is another image, a cartoon which compares, the mountains with the Ghazipur mountain of waste. And this is an image of the fire. So imagine when the fire was there, uh, the inhabitants near the place found it very difficult to breathe because all sort of waste was burning. And this has really all sorts of waste in it. So when I'm talking about municipal waste, there's a lot of plastic waste that is there, that is being dumped, and much more. So uh, it creates a lot of problem when burnt, of course, but also because this pile is continuing to grow. What happens is that it also poses a threat of waste leaching into the soil, and it then ultimately pollutes groundwater because all the black leachate at the end goes to the groundwater. So compared to India, most of the developed countries by the 1960s had stopped using landfills as an option of waste management. In India, there are many more options of waste management, but this one is most common. There's also incinerators through which you can burn your waste. There are also waste treatment plants that also do the job, but they're very expensive and not available as of now everywhere. So they are more there. They're available more in the mega cities. So that's there. So in the 1960s, countries in the global north, and by global north, I mean all the Western countries, they had switched to sanitary landfills where the bottom of the landfill is lined with a thick plastic and clay to prevent waste from leaching into the groundwater. Each layer of garbage is then covered with soil to allow it to decompose rapidly. And once the landfill is full, it's sealed and covered with a thick layer of clay. So, and it's always after a period of time, it's then evaluated for safety and converted into a park or an open space for humans to use. So once, there's as I was saying, that the Ghazipur landfill site was established in the 1984 and was saturated by 2002. So they have a timeline. And once they expire that timeline, these landfills are covered and then they could be converted for recreational purposes, mostly a park. So the question now is, waste management has hardly figured in independent India's growth story, right? Back in the 1950s, India was pressed with so many problems, bigger problems rather, like hunger and maintaining communal harmony, that it considered that the waste management as a topic was considered trivial back then. Most of the countries resided in villages. Half of our waste was organic then, and the rest was ash, sand, grit, which was easily, compostable. So what was happening was you could reduce waste at your own end, right? And but things changed after 1991 when India, there was liberalization in India, and India's economy changed in a big way, and small businesses, big businesses started to boom. So there came plastics, right? It's interesting to, I would love to share a fact with you, which is very interesting, that before 1991, there were not many plastic bottles. You couldn't find plastic bottles on the railway stations or when you were traveling. You had to carry your own water bottle and, drink from that. But after 1991, things changed. So imagine how much waste are we producing every day. So this is a picture of waste on Earth, right? You have seen how it is being managed through one method, and that is the landfill method. But we now it's safe to say that waste is not just a problem on the Earth, but also in space. And if any one of you could tell me, what do you think is there in space, and like in terms of waste, what could you find in terms of waste in space? Any guesses?
Old satellites.
Yes,
Satellite debris.
Debris, like when astronauts went there, they might have used some kind of tools and everything.
perfect.
Generated in orbit.
Spaceships which have blasted and they are scattered on the space, like around
Loose nuts and bolts which come out during repairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Inactive satellites.
Inactive satellites. Yes, yes. Perfect. I got my answer. So,
brains
sorry, your voice is breaking. All right, I'll.
junks, meme. Huh?
Yeah, space debris and pieces of spaceship. Perfect. Satellite failures. Absolutely, all of that. So, 67 years ago, there was a single human-built object that was in the Earth's orbit, and that was the Russian satellite Sputnik 1, that was launched on October 4th, 1957. And once that was launched, and the first man-made object reached space, the race began, especially between the United States of America and Russia, to send their satellites. And so Sputnik 1 had radio transmitters inside it, and it made a beeping sound that could be heard. The image that you see in the background is of the satellite. So, rapid exploration, just a second. Yeah. Rapid exploration and rapid advancement in space exploration meant that over the years, more and more satellites were sent by more and more countries into the Earth's orbit. And once the satellite enters the space around the Earth, it begins to orbit our planet. sending signals carrying different information to space agencies all around the world, right? And the image that you see right now is an artist's conception of what exactly is orbiting the Earth right now. And these are like satellites, satellites that are currently obsolete but are still orbiting, and things from the astronauts. There's also earlier, when the space mission wasn't that advanced, astronauts had problems even to excrete, right? And there was excreta circling around the Earth's orbit. So all of that was also there, but now that problem has been solved. There's a special space training for that, which they call toilet training. And that bit is now taken care of. But with the satellites that are orbiting and are obsolete by now, they still remain in the Earth's orbit and are continuously monitored, right? Because each time a new satellite is launched, it might collide with the remaining debris. And that is why a lot of you know, uh, reporting is done by NASA each time to ensure that this doesn't happen. So maneuvering happens. And in fact, I'll show you another image before I continue. Also a number which might be interesting. So this is another cartoon which says that, is it an asteroid or is it a meteor? No, it's space junk. And space debris, space junk, they're all, words used synonymously. So, like more than 5,000 rocket launches have placed satellites in orbit since the start of space age in 1957. And Indian-made space debris is, by the 2019 data, was 163 pieces. So each country, also in terms of, space debris polluters, US, Russia, China are the biggest three polluters, and India ranks fourth as of now. So these satellites, they have allowed us, to watch our planet like never before and transmitted signals seamlessly from one place to another. Imagine the weather forecast. You need satellites for that. GPS, you need satellites for that, right? So even your TV connections, those dish connections, all of that needs satellites. So a majority of the satellites that orbit the Earth today are inactive. They have a very less, span. And these large number of inactive satellites in the orbit not only increases debris, as I said, but also increases the danger of collisions that end up generating even more debris. For example, I'll share the numbers with you. In 2009, the active American satellite Iridium 33 collided with an inactive Russian satellite Cosmos 2251. And this was the first collision that was noted, and it generated 2,000 pieces of debris, which are still orbiting the Earth. So during the 1960s, when the space mission and the space age came up, international space laws were created by the UN Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Among other things, they tried to limit space debris, right? For example, they asked countries to develop satellites that didn't remain in the orbit indefinitely, and imposing penalties on countries whose spacecrafts generated debris. But as of now, a lot of these laws are not mandatory, and a lot of countries do not follow them. In fact, in this image, what do you think this spider-like web, is? Can anyone take a wild guess?
A net to catch
Yes,
waste garbage.
yes, perfect. It's a net, and it took many years to make such a net, and it's still in the testing phase. The idea is to launch it from a satellite, and so rather launch it from a rocket and then see if it can collect marine debris in it. So, sorry, space debris in it, not marine debris. So if it can collect the debris. So it's still in the testing phase, and NASA is planning to launch it next year, and let's see if it's able to collect some debris in it. So that is more or less the session today. So we saw, I'll just give you a quick recap. So first we began by seeing how waste that is tossed into our dustbins at homes reaches a landfill site. Over there, the problems that it causes and how difficult it is to, contain huge amounts of waste every day, which are piling up. And I've given you examples of Delhi and Mumbai. Mega cities are especially struggling with it, but uh, you know, uh, thanks to the increasing consumerism, it has increased. And then the second thing uh, with it is also that the waste is not just confined on Earth, but rather also in space, and that's something to think about. So yes, I think I would like to now open the floor for questions. And we can talk in general more about waste. If you have any questions, we can also talk about my research on ships. I'm happy to discuss anything.
Thank you. I think you timed it so well, Ayushi.
Um,
And then
Perfect.
I was also
Yeah.
quite impressed with the kind of images that you got for students. So it kind of blended pretty well with what you were saying. I didn't imagine about debris in the space and things like that. So, I mean, while we're waiting, of course, if you want to ask a question like what we did yesterday, you could raise your hand and then we could go one by one. Or if you think you should be asking in the chat, that's also fine. But in the chat, the way your generation, I'm slightly old. Sometimes you'll be discussing with each other. So they have been we kept it open like that so that there is some peer interaction happening. But if you want to ask a question, and it's not easy to get experts like Ayushi here. She has done a research, a PhD in environmental humanities. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So if anybody is 10th, 11th, and 12th and want to know about careers in this area, right? So I think unfortunately in a country like India, we shouldn't say unfortunately, because we need engineers also. And the entire focus is to become an engineer, doctor, or a lawyer kind of thing. But when we don't really understand the role that the other professionals make in or do in making this a better society. Yeah, we already have 5 questions while we were waiting.
Oh, perfect.
And yeah, we'll go with Vandita's question first, then Abhishruti and Bhumi's question in that order. Vandita, what's your question? And if you could just say which city, town you're from, that'd be nice.
Okay, sure. I'm from Mumbai. I'm in 12th standard studying currently, and yeah, so I have like few doubts. The first thing is, unfortunately, I was unable to attend the previous session. So could you like give like a summary and like a summary that
Your voice is kind of, I don't know whether it's my speaker. It's not coming out fully clearly. Is it okay for you, Aishi?
Yeah, I think she's missed the initial session, and she wants a quick summary of it.
Oh, no, this today's Ayushi's talk is not related to what we did on Tuesday and Wednesday. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that
No,
only. Was
don't
it
worry about it.
related or
Don't
something?
we just okay, just for the benefit. We wanted you to have a renewed relationship with your school subjects. Okay, that was the idea of this workshop. A friendlier relationship with your school subjects, and not look at I like this, I don't like this. All school subjects are important. That was the idea. So instead of just talking about English as a language, the first session was on English language. We did that through the theme of ghazals in English and comics, right? And comics is not only for, I think I will share the recording of that if you're interested. That was on day one. Day two, instead of talking biology, for some reason, it gets restricted to human physiology, right? People think you're learning biology to become a doctor. We wanted to break that myth, and then uh, Dr. Achyut spoke about aliens that are live amongst us. Aliens in the sense, those are not native species. It could be plants, it could be animals, right? So that was the second session. Today, instead of talking about history, which people think is history is all about some events, remembering some names of some Raja, Maharaja, and what they did, we thought we will look at history slightly differently. And we have an environmental historian today with us. And you will see at the second session how they talk to each other. So that's a quick summary, Vandita. So you're not missed anything. If it's just the session you have joined, you're good. Sorry, long answer to your short question.
That's all right. Thank you so much.
I would like to add to Rajgopal here. We're talking about renewed relationship with our subjects, right? And often, when we think of history, as he said, it's we often think of kings and queens and dates, and we think that we have to you memorize all of them. But now we have moved ahead, right? And this is not what we do when we are talking of history. We rather develop the skills to think critically. So when we are reading a paper, we see what are the different interpretations available on that topic and what others have written, and then see where the gap exists, and we try to fill that. So the reason why I chose to talk about environmental history today was that history also has various subdisciplines, and environment is one of them, a very topical subdiscipline. Which is very important in today's day and age. Every day we are flooded with news like this much plastics has been found in the, let's say, Great Pacific Ocean. We can see mounds of burning clothes and many things. You can talk of waste and arrays of those, right? So we also often get overwhelmed with this sort of information, right? Especially today's generation might think that, we haven't contributed that much to this existing dilemma, and why are we to suffer, right? Climate change is happening, extreme weather conditions are there. So definitely, I would like to highlight that environmental history is not just about doom and gloom. It's also about thinking of your past and seeing why we have reached here and what decisions. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I just muted. Go ahead, go ahead. It's my mistake there. Oh, I'm sorry. You should don't do a mute all. Whoever did a mute all, don't do.
Now, am I audible? Perfect.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So definitely it's not just about doom and gloom. Please don't think that, in a subject like environmental history, we'll be studying of what has gone wrong. We rather see why the decisions that were taken, and why are we here, and what do we learn from that. It's also important to see that this is not something that has happened in the past, is not now. You might think that it's not related. It's very much related. So that is something that I really wanted to emphasize. I will now take questions. I think Rishik wrote, like, could you type the name of the two satellites that collided in 2009? I'm writing it here for you. It's Iridium 33 and Cosmos 2251. Right. Then there's another one which says, doesn't the debris fall back into the Earth's surface due to gravity? It doesn't fall back, it rather burns. So like if there's debris in the lower orbit, it generally burns. And this is interesting. That's an important question that you've raised. Because India, when it did its testing, when it did its satellite testing in 2019, one of the flag that it received from organizations such as NASA was that it has created a lot of debris, and that is irresponsible behavior. But to which India responded that, most of the debris that has been created, the number of particles, they were around 2000. Most of them were created in the lower orbit and would eventually burn down, right? So the number would come down eventually. So, and that is what exactly happened. So that's an answer to one of the.
That's fair. I think there is a lot of questions. People have raised their hands. Just go by that also quickly. I'm
Okay.
glad you're looking at the. Next is, I think, Abhishruti, your question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm from Calcutta. And ma'am, my question to you is, you talked about space waste
Yeah.
and how the stringent policies that are already there, they are not fully implemented.
Hmm.
So, what are the measures that you think, NASA and all these space organizations should undertake in order to implement these policies? And there's a follow-up question as well. How is our future going to be affected with all the space debris that is there?
Excellent questions. So, what's your name again? Sorry, I didn't get it.
It is Abhishruti.
Abhishruti. Okay, Abhishruti, one of the things, they are not many stringent regulations in place as of now. They're still developing, right? This is a fairly new space. It's just 67 years. So a lot of them are continuously being developed. And the idea as of now that is being floated is that these planets are nobody's property, right? And they should be used by everyone in a safe manner. And also, because if someone is, creating problems or is creating a lot of marine space debris, and the satellites are just orbiting and there's a lot of problems, then the other countries cannot then use it, right? Because I talked about the point of collisions that happens, and a lot of maneuvering has to take place in order for a satellite to be launched. So as of now, they say that it's the tragedy of commons. So if something happens, it is going to affect everybody on the planet. And how it's going to affect us is a question that even they are figuring out. They think that, with time they'll be able to tackle it. But the concern is that there's so many satellites that are being launched. Even Amazon has got into that space. So they really are trying to, and that's why they have like pushed this space debris cleaning mission, which will now take place next year. So they're concerned, but at the same time, the boundaries are very fuzzy, and eventually they will get stricter. Also, one thing, waste as a topic is something that provokes a lot of reactions, but also concerns. But at the same time, these boundaries remain so fuzzy, and not confined to one area, one nation, one space, that we often tend to overlook it and say that this is a problem created by someone else, right? The biggest polluters right now can say that we have done our bits, the other countries should take care of it now. They shouldn't launch a lot of satellites, right? So that's there.
We have 6 more questions before we hand it over to
I'll be quick now.
next session, but that's okay. But this is interesting. I think some of the questions, Ayushi, and I'm thinking this could be a final year research project that they could do with you
Absolutely.
if they decide to join us in Range University. So, Ragnia, your question, Ragnia Raina, your question.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir. Lovely. I'm so sorry. I'm a little nervous. I'm fumbling. I loved your lecture. I'm going to call it a lecture. It was amazing to listen to, and I didn't even know environmental history was a subject, or it could even be researched. Ma'am, my 2 questions might be a little silly, or they're definitely silly, and they're a little far from each other. But my first question is, has there been an event, like a specific historical event, that still has affected our environment to this day? One specific event. And my second question is, do you think we need a cultural mindset, like a reset of our ethics and our values when it comes to understanding how to save our environment and to be more environmentally sustainable? Those are my questions.
Perfect. To begin with, no question is silly or naive. Questions are really important, and I'm glad that I am getting these questions. The first question, event that affects us to today, to even today, is definitely, I'm sitting in Bhopal, and I could immediately think of the Bhopal gas tragedy. Right? It happened years ago, but the effects of it are still visible. The waste that got leached in the groundwater is still there. In fact, we had a an exhibition some months ago, and the people came and they talked to us about the tragedy, and they had all these photos to share. And in fact, the organization that continuously is still date working with them. And the first thing they said was that the water is polluted, and it is affecting the people living nearby. So there might be kids being born still with stunted growth, right? So this is just one of the events. I could talk about many others. Rachel Carson in her book had talked about DTT. The book was called The Silent Spring. If any one of you is interested in environmental history or history, you should go ahead and read this book. It's a fascinating book which changed the trajectory of the
I've read
subject.
it. I've read
Yes,
that book. It's wonderful.
yes. So that's there. And the second question, I didn't get you. Could you rephrase that for me?
Yeah. The question was basically, do we need to go through like a mindset revolution is a big word to use.
Yeah.
Do you think we need like something that's going to sort of make all of us suddenly realize, like revolutionize our mind maybe, to understand that we need to really save our planet? Because every time I read some article about how we've cleared these many tons of plastic from the ocean, and then I open Instagram
Yeah.
and there's like, oh, there's 200 tons of plastic in Guatemala or something.
Yeah.
I feel like one step forward is two steps back. So
Yeah.
do we need to collectively have a mindset rechange or something to understand that we need to save our planet? Or
Definitely.
like that?
See, collective is a huge responsibility at the same time, right? What could we do at a personal level? Just probably quit those plastic straws to begin with. Stop consuming that PET bottles, or what I can think of, these plastic packaging, so much of it, right? Every other thing is packaged. Our food comes packaged into that. And a very easy one. Even I started doing that years ago. And that is such a good thing. You are reducing waste at the home level. Composting. Just take your kitchen waste and compost it, right? So collective responsibility, definitely. Collective mindset change, definitely. But that would begin with something individual and personal. I
Thank
believe
you.
that.
Yeah. I mean, as I said yesterday, I'm repeating as what I said. I think we're in safe. The next generation is in safe hands, because I always feel that my generation, who are in the late 40s, early 50s, we are not giving you Mother Earth the way we inherited from our parents. But the hope is the next generation will do it much better than the folks who are in the 50s now. So next question, Fatima, what's your question?
Good morning, ma'am and sir. Ma'am, I find your field to be very interesting. So I would like to know what you're currently researching.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to have this question. So for my PhD, I looked into ships. So ships from all over the world come to a village called Alang in Gujarat, a very small village that has some excellent properties, geographical properties, due to which ships can be easily beached there. Beaching means that you collide the ship at the with the sand that's there, and then you ultimately break it. So once it stops functioning, then you take the all the things that are out that are present in the ship, and there are a lot of things. Once they take them out, and then they break it into pieces. Imagine slicing a piece of loaf. You begin from the start and you end at the really end. Rajkumar, are you saying something? No, okay. So that was for my PhD, and as of now, I am currently researching on Greenpeace and the amount of incredible work that it has done in India. So I am looking at that, what kind of changes came, and how the organization was. The presence was gradually diminishing by the 2013 2014. So I'm looking into that. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, I agree that Rachel Carson's book is amazing. I've
Yeah.
also read it.
Perfect. I'm happy that you guys have read it. That's great. More questions, please.
Yeah, we have Amayashri and then Mahika's question. Amayashri, what's the question?
Good morning, ma'am and sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to start by saying that I was also not aware of environmental history as a thing. I mean, history is generally all about remembering dates.
Yeah.
So people usually find it boring, but I really loved this session and it was very informative. I have a couple of questions. The first thing is with regards to landfills. We do have recycling and uplifting processes, but other than that, are there any emerging technologies which can help reduce these problems?
Yeah. That is the waste treatment plants. These are like really well established in Sweden right now. So and they're also there in India, but because they're very expensive, not a lot of cities have them. So the idea is that they process waste and then they produce energy. In fact, Sweden is one of those countries which not just is able to tackle its own waste, but rather also imports waste from other countries because it's been able to tackle it so well. So it's another example of how to do it well. So definitely it's an emerging technology. It is being worked upon, and ideally it would eventually come to India in more numbers. Yeah, not just in mega cities. Yeah.
Okay, and the next question is that you did mention about dumping waste in ocean as well in between.
Yeah.
So, like, are there any measures that have been taken to kind of, stop ocean dumping as well?
Yes, definitely. There's a ocean dumping convention. There are many waste laws. There's a Basel Convention, then there's a ocean dumping convention. That definitely, because the idea earlier was that all the radioactive waste, especially, was dumped into the seas, into the oceans, because really at the bottom, because there was no other way. They felt that it could be dealt in a more responsible manner with extremely well packaged containers which mentioned everything on them, that even if the civilization is lost, when the other one comes, they would be able to read the signs and interpret them. So that was there, but this has been declining. The trend is declining, and the conventions are in place, but again they remain fuzzy. We can't completely say that because of a convention now waste dumping wouldn't happen. That's never the case. There are always loopholes, and there are ways to trespass that. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. I do have one last question is that as individuals, what do you think people can do to like majorly reduce waste contribution in landfills?
I would definitely say be mindful of what you are consuming to begin with. There's so much around us right now, right? You open Instagram, there are 20 things being sold, there are 20 things being shown. Clothes, there's this whole idea that the celebrities have endorsed that you shouldn't be repeating your clothes, and then we also subconsciously imbibe that, right? But just imagine the amount of energy that goes into it, and fast fashion these days is so dangerous. In the Atacama desert, all these clothes, fast fashion clothes all over the world, they go there. And in fact, an image was visible from space which showed a mountain of clothes from the top, and that was eventually burnt. So everyone should probably be taking care of that, and then I would definitely say plastics. These two things, if we take a tab on that, we'll go a long way. Yeah.
If I can just add
Yeah.
with a tinge of humor, if you Google RRR, unfortunately, what will come up is a movie, the super hit movie, but it actually stood for reduce, reuse, and recycle. So,
Yes.
so that could be one way, but it's harder in today's world where at one end people are telling you every other Instagram story is asking you to consume more, buy things more, and where they're asking you to reduce consumption. Then we have to reuse what we already have, and then whatever we're buying, can we buy recyclable material? So yeah. Mahika, what's your question then?
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry. Was there one more question? You have another question?
No, like it was talked about like how there are so many clothes and all that. In that case, is it possible for like the government to set a production limit?
Ah.
That's a tough one.
it's it's like asking a question: if you improve public transportation in a city, will that reduce people buying cars? If people stop buying cars, will it hit the automobile industry? If it hits the automobile industry, will it impact the paint industry and the nuts and bolt industry, the mechanic industry? It's a hard question, but I'm glad I mean, at school you're asking these questions. So we are just excited as, of course, the others are academics. I'm not directly involved in teaching, but we are excited you're asking these questions.
But to add to the production limit thing, you know that India actually imports a lot of waste as in cloth waste, and these industries are called shoddy industries, right? And in Panipat, they have one such industry, or rather multiple factories running, where clothes, especially from Africa and elsewhere, come in the name of donation often, and then are reprocessed. And our blankets that we use, those quilts that we call rajai, in that there is all of these pieces of recycled cloth, or that's been cut into pieces, and there are huge employment benefits that are given to people who are working there. So the production limit is a good question.
That's a good question. No, it's a good question. I mean, if you look at, people praise a lot about cycling capital, Amsterdam being the cycling capital. But the question to ask is there a big car automobile manufacturer coming from Holland or that country? Maybe not. So it's a government vision as well. Huh? It's both. But today I don't think we are stepping into this.
Yeah.
This is completely. Maybe we'll discuss about that tomorrow when we have Shivli, Sunit, and Avinash talking about economics and social sciences. I think Sharif is talking about social science. We'll probably touch upon that tomorrow. The role of a government.
All right.
Right? Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Mahika and Meenakshi's question. Oh, questions is going up, but we'll have to stop 11 because this happened yesterday. What we thought, 1 hour is too much. Now it's too less. But quickly, if you can make it very short and quick, then we can take more questions, Mahika.
Yeah, actually, from the previous thing that was asked about the clothes clothes. So there are NGOs which actually support this. Like you can raise up funds and then they'll actually recycle those clothes and give up to the people who are in need.
Yeah.
And someone was asking for like various managements that's happening. So like this e-waste, and there's like during when you burn, people usually burn e-waste. They burn mobile phones, which produce lead, mercury, and these are harmful substances. And they can produce like pollution much more. And they're like scrubbers also used for acid rain, and they're like electrostatic precipitators as well. My question was that someone just said about that you should not, like, people are like producing satellites more, which can increase space pollution as well.
Yeah.
But what happens, like, other countries have been already developed. What
Yeah.
about the countries which are not developed? These are the reasons that can stop the developing countries to, actually like come forward, like the other, like USA, like which are having satellites and all, because they have been developing since the 19th with the printing presses and all.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's a very important question that you've raised. What about the developing countries, right? The same sort of argument is given when we talk about climate change, that now the global south needs to take care of its emissions because climate change is happening. They need to take care of their wastes because they're going out of hand. Talk about the space debris. India should be careful while launching its satellites, and that there shouldn't be a lot of space debris. That's absolutely there. And remember that the developing countries also have their agency. They have fought and they have stood their ground grounds whenever needed. So, for example, in my case, in my PhD research, when I was talking about shipbreaking, I had looked at documents after documents which showed that India fought with the global north to import a lot of waste, like the ship waste, because the steel was being used in construction industries, right? This was secondary steel, and as a developing country, we needed steel to grow. So that's there, and they have always the countries also always have an agency, but at the same time, they should also be careful, not exploitative in its nature and character. And this excuse shouldn't be always given that because we haven't developed, we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
exploit and destroy everything. That's
That's
And I had
and
I had another question.
Yeah.
Like there are three landfills in Delhi. One is Okhla,
Yeah.
Balaspa, and
Yeah.
Gazipur. Yeah.
Yeah.
So last year there was this news that they were planning to remediate Okhla landfill
Yeah.
by the end of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that remediation of a landfill is not easy at all.
Yeah.
And do you think it actually occurred, and how much would it help the environment of remediation of the landfill?
See, remediation is definitely possible through biomining that happens. And it definitely would have happened, but not to an extent where, because the problem is that there's these three landfills are always over the capacities that they can take. Same happened with the Ghazipur landfill site that I talked, Ghazipur one, because during the elections there was this a politician who said that they would reduce the pile by 10 meters, and they actually did that. But there's so much incoming waste that they don't get the time to, do the complete remediation. More things are needed to facilitate that. For example, a waste treatment plant, right? So it happens, but in bits and pieces. I think we are done now with the questions.
yeah, just take quickly. Meenakshi, what's the question quickly? She's been waiting for a
Yeah,
long time.
so my question is related to the latter part of ma'am's lecture. So she said that after the collision between iridium and cosmos, there were these few set of laws that were introduced by the UN, and she also said that it wasn't very much followed. But at the same time, when she was answering a question, she said that we are improving new methods to reduce space junk or space debris. But isn't that very controversial that we aren't following laws which were introduced for the reason of reducing junk? At the same time, we are saying that we are reducing space junk. How?
The thing is that after the collision, the laws didn't come into they weren't uh, formulated then. The laws came into existence around 1957 when the space mission took off and the space race had begun, right? These laws, as I said, are not they're not set in stone. Not everyone is following them as of now, but there is as NASA is taking control and looking at all the things, they're seeing that the countries that do these missions take care of their debris, and even in fact they are also, because they can literally see which country and how much debris has it created, right? So that much oversight is there. So that's there, and I think you got confused with the laws and the protocols that exist in place, and eventually definitely it will get better. It's just that this is so new that the news that the debris cleaning and all of that is being what do you call uh, is being taken care of, but it will take time for that to happen. That's what NASA says. And I quoted them when I told you about this. Yeah.
On that note, I think we'll have to end this segment. I'm sorry, not able to take Rishan, Janvi, and Dipanjan's question. Can we, Sadaf, my colleague who's
Yes.
helping us behind the scenes, should we just take a quick 5 minute break so that Ajay has got the time to set his PPT and things like that? So those who are on the call, if you want to just go have a quick break and come back. We will start exactly at 11:05.
Yeah,
Okay.
the remaining questions in next segment.
Yes, we will take the questions next segment. Clearly, we will take the segment, but I don't want to because Ajay has been waiting for some time, and the next segment I'll introduce at 11:05. Okay,
Thank
Ayushi,
you
thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think I look forward to your blog or an article of what you just spoke now.
Yes.
Be
Okay.
worthwhile documenting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadaf, will it be Ajay will be sharing the PPT or will it be from your screen?
Ajay will be sharing. His laptop is working fine.
I don't know why I don't see him.
No, he hasn't joined. He's joining again.
Okay,
He
okay,
joined
okay,
the
okay.
meeting because he was doing, yeah,
So I want to make him. I want to make him the host.
yeah, he'll
Co-host.
join now.
No problem. It's very difficult to. Yeah, just make him the co-host. Prakriti, can you check why I'm not able to make him. Prakriti, can you make him a co-host?
Okay, Pratiti is the host, so she can only make him co-host.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll explain.
Okay, now you are the host, Rajgopal.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I just did. Now we should be able to. Can we start now? It's 11:05, 11:06.
Yes, I can start.
Okay, I'll just.
Should I upload the PPT? Share the PPT?
You can. Just give me 1 second. Okay, it's 11:06. I thought I'll start at 11:05. Hopefully, everybody's back now. So, after that session on environmental history, it was not, we're talking about waste management, debris, all that, and it went to a little bit of economics as well. Now we are doing another interesting session with my colleague Ajay Salunkhe. Ajay is a historian specializing in actually museum practices. Okay, but today's session is going to be on interesting. It's going to connect to what just Ayushi did. How do we really explore environmental history or history through archives? And he's going to talk about visual archives. Okay, need not be literary archives and things like that. I mean, the archive, reading archives, looking at archives is a tool of an historian, and the craft it becomes is a part of the craft of the historian. And over to you, Ajay. I don't want to be speaking when specialists like you are here, who have looked at history as a discipline, and I've looked at history only as a layperson, right? And then I can see some bright PowerPoint presentations which I've been seeing some from day one, and I need to pick up some PPT making skills from you all. And over to you. Hopefully, the audience is back by now. But over to you, and I'll be behind the scenes. I'm muted everyone, but if you think that you need to ask any questions, I'm letting you.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself also. But over to you, Ajay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Ajay Salunkhe, and I teach history here in the Azim Premji University Bhopal campus. So actually, my research in history is very unique in terms of that I do not study history only through documents and books, but also through photos and images, because my area of research is about museums, exhibitions, and how visuals overall are used to create a particular narrative of history. So today I will, following Ayushi, my colleague from the department here, I will continue the theme of environmental history and how we can study environmental history through use of images. So I will try and demonstrate that to you.
Can you do it with slideshow?
Yes. So let us start the journey. First of all, the subject is history. So we generally, history is considered as a human story, or so let us see what we generally understand in history. We think history is all about mankind, humankind, and their achievement since Stone Age till today. But is history all that? And how about when we start thinking about Earth and whether Earth can have her own story to tell, her own history to narrate? So today, my attempt will be to convey that human art, human produced images can also help us to understand something other than non-human elements, which is basically history history of Earth, history of environment through images. So the earliest images that and the discipline that which I'm talking about is actually called visual culture. The concept of visual culture is very unique, but it's well studied, it's well researched area. It's a discipline within itself, because it talks about how do we look at images, visual images, and how do we make them, how do we circulate them. And this study of making and circulation of visual images actually can inform us about our own history, our own past. And that is what visual culture is about, especially in today's time and age when all of our lives are around various kinds of digital and non-digital images. the concept of visual culture and media studies are very much relevant to every aspect of human life. So and I today my presentation and my concept will I'll try to deliver this similar I will try to show similar demonstrate similarly how we can do so in the context of environmental history. So humans were not always at the center stage of art or images that humans only made. The earliest man-made image is actually can be considered as a cave paintings. How many of you know about a cave painting? What are the cave paintings? Have you heard of those?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So they are basically paintings of various animals which existed in various caves, which were dwellings of prehistoric man, prehistoric humans. And the prehistoric, we do not know exactly why they painted them. We just know that they exist. They show us that whatever humans were seeing around them, whatever their daily lifestyle, their daily life was, they were recording it visually on the surface of the cave in which they used to stay. They might have ritualistic purposes, or they might be just sharing information with someone else. We do not know. We cannot be certain about that. But what we can be know for sure while reading these images is that its encounter with nature was very much close by this time. There was not much distinction between human and environment. All of these was a part of a single system. We can actually see from another example from the cave in the Lacax cave in France, where these paintings are around 15,000 to 10,000 years old, and we can actually see that the animals which the humans used to hunt, or animals which they used to be afraid of, all those various animals are depicted along with human elements. Now, how were these images created? Visual culture, the discipline of visual culture is also interested in knowing or understanding the making of the images, the production of the images. So on the surface of the caves, first charcoals were used to create a cartoon or a drawing, line drawing of animal, and then paints were used to fill in the details. Now, what were the early humans' paints or pigments which they used? And usually, it is believed that they used to use vegetables, and flowers, and all those colors. But it is actually a myth. It is not true, because had they used anything that contained carbon, or anything that comes from trees, plants, or animals, it would have decayed way earlier. But they used to use pigments made out of stones and various earth elements. For example, red ochre or gerua, as we call it in India, for to make a red pigment, which were then later bound with either egg yolk or animal fat, and then it was used. Similarly, different kind of stones and minerals were used of different colors to achieve particular color rendering, which suggests that human had well developed artistic practices by this time. Now the example that I showed to you was from France, a cave painting in France. But right in my backyard, around like in Bhopal, some few kilometers away from Bhopal, we have Bhimbetka, again India's pride, a UNESCO heritage site, where we have similar prehistoric cave paintings depicting the lives of prehistoric man and its interaction with its environment. One thing that I would like to highlight is, unfortunately, unlike the cave painting in France or anywhere outside, cave paintings in India are not that well preserved. and major role into this are in the degradation of cave paintings and any archaeological historical site are the visitors who do not behave responsibly while they are visiting any of such sites. Anyway, so after cave paintings, can anyone tell me what these visuals are? From which part of the world or which part of history these visuals
Egyptian
belong to?
painting.
Yes, correct. These are
Egyptian.
Egyptian deities, Egyptian gods. You can actually see that Egyptians were
They,
notorious.
they
Yes,
were
yes.
half human and half animal.
Correct. They are half human and half animals. Now, why do you think people's or Egyptian civilization started worshipping animals and their human composite forms? By the time when Egyptian civilization was established, which is around 3000 BC, which again goes back to 5000 to 6000 years before today. Now, why do you think humans started worshipping half of animal and half of humans? And what does it suggest?
I think it suggests the religious significance of various animals.
Yes, yes, it is religious because they were worshipped as gods. They were worshipped as creators, protectors, and punishers also, right? So yes, they are element. There is a major element of religion, but why would suddenly religion create a composite gods between animals and humans? Something a practice that is called theriotary. You can actually see various gods. The Ra, who is the supreme god in Egyptian mythology, with the falcon head. Then there is Thought, who was a god of learning, and then there is goddess who was actually composite animal of crocodile mouth and hippopotamus body. She was a protector of children. She was protector of children, and she was considered very fierce. So these all actually suggest that by the time Egyptian civilization established, various human and animal exchanges roles were now more categorized because humans had started to settle down and depend more and more on agriculture and trade, which was out of the surplus production of that agriculture. As a result, animals who were helpful for this civilized living were considered as important natural elements, and then that is why they were personified and deified. The best example in this context will be the example of Hapi or the Nile River gods. The Nile River and Egyptian civilization are like synonymous, are synonym to each other. It would have not been possible for Egyptians to have a rich civilization. Yes, Mahika.
Yeah, you were talking about Nile River. So there was this mythology where there were like crocodiles in that river and they were known for fertility. And that's why
Correct.
they used to actually have half human, half animals. Like it can also show that how powerful they were. We can even say that.
Yeah, the power, the concept of power associated with natural elements like rain, river, or earth are nothing but our dependence. The more you are dependent on that element, the more importance you will give to that particular natural element in your mythology. For example, the similar example exists here in India when Ganga or major rivers all across Indian subcontinent are deified and given status of goddess, and they are still worshipped in various forms. Similarly, Nile had similar concept because they depended their entire civilization, their existence, their ecosystem was entirely dependent on Nile River. And Nile, and not just because it had contained water, but the periodic flooding that it did. The agricultural system of Egyptian civilization was not based on canals when it started, it was based on flooding of Nile. There were several floods, there were several and periodic floods in Nile River, and based on that excess water that the flood used to create. That is how the agriculture used to get water in their civilization, and as a result, the personification of Nile River became the most important factor for Egyptian civilization. But now, when we are talking about Egyptian civilization, did you guys notice that I immediately started with gods of Egypt, and then we went to and fro and looked at the Egyptian certain images from Egyptian civilization. But why do you think we started with Egyptian gods and mythology? Like who gave us this idea that Egypt is equal to Egyptian mythology first, or Egypt is equal to mummies and pyramids? Egypt, was there nothing else in Egyptian civilization?
The paintings and cave paintings mostly
Yes, correct.
depicted
There were
the
a lot of Egyptians were the people who had major artistic expression in various ways. They were also industrialist people who used to cultivate various food products, grains, fruits, and then they used to also trade them with Mesopotamia, with Harappa in earlier period, and with later part with Greco-Roman culture. But that aspect of Egyptian culture is actually very, the moment somebody says Egypt, we first think of only the mythology of Egyptians and the mummies and the pyramids. Now, this concept, this immediate association in our brain about Egypt is actually a product of historical process that is called Egyptomania. Have you guys heard of this word, Egyptomania?
Yes.
So,
Yes, sir.
who can tell me what it is about?
Sir, I think it's like being obsessed with Egyptian culture and then buying mummies for parties and all of that.
Yes, yes, you are
It's
absolutely right.
obsession. It's
Correct.
obsession. Yeah.
That was the obsession, and who had those
I think
obsession?
during the Victorian era, they had these mummy parties.
Yeah, it was during late Victorian and then early 19th and 20th century. It continued well till 1970s, 80s, by the way. So it was this thing called. So this is the expanse of Egypt, and we can actually see that Egypt is immediately associated with its monuments. So actually, it all started when Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Egypt in order to stop European trade with the East, which is India and then later rest of the Asia. And in order to do that, he invaded Egypt and conquered it in late 1790s. As a result, there was a introduction to Egyptian materiality, Egyptian archaeology to most of the Europeans, which and that obsession continued till 1950s, 1960s actually. So on the screen you can see this is a poster of a movie which was released in 1955, and this is actually a poster of a musical show called Cabaret in the US. Egyptian fashion and Egyptian materials were also became status symbol for majority of European and American people, so much so that they started obsessively examine mummies, open them up, and then have a look at them. Collection of mummies became obsession within the European people. Now, there are two distinct images on the screen. These are two paintings, famous paintings from Europe. I want you to identify whether you can find a mummy in this picture. In both of these paintings, do you see any mummies in there? Did anyone find a mummy?
There's one on the chair dressed up as a person.
This one?
Yeah.
That's a human.
Sir, there's a mummy below the.
Sorry, whoever was talking, your audio was not clear.
The girl is holding the blue flag.
The girl.
Yeah, here. And the
This
next,
one?
yeah, no, this one, another one, holding the blue flag.
Okay, understood. This one.
Yeah.
So actually, there are no mummies depicted visually in this, but mummies are present in both these pictures. Because the color brown that you can see in all of these pictures, both of these pictures are made by the crushing down mummies. So this was the extent of obsession of Europeans with Egypt, that they started to purchase mummies like we purchase sabji on the street. You can actually see that a
Oh, yes,
mummy
sir.
was being,
Mummies, they make good brown paint.
yeah, so the mummy, both animal and human mummies were purchased and they were crushed. People used to gift each other hands, legs, and various objects, parts of mummies as a status symbol, and then they were crushed into making a brown distinct paint. And this paint was later used by various artists in 19th century. To create a particular mummy. Sorry, and it was called mummy brown, the paint. So, okay, this was actually a detour from our topic. So the reason I wanted to talk about the Egyptomania is because the way we think of Egypt now is heavily influenced by the concept of Egypt that we received through movies, novels, and all such paintings and other visual practices that we have inherited through Hollywood, and then and the classic English novels. As a result, we cannot think, it takes us efforts to think about Egypt other than mummies and pyramids. We cannot think of them as a agriculturalist, industrialist, and civilization which used to do international trade, but we only want to think of them about as a people who used to bury their dead and create monuments. So this is the power of visual culture, because it creates and it makes and destroys certain images for generations. Now this is a prince with a falcon. This is a painting on paper from 1600. Can anyone guess who can be this prince might be?
Akbar, I guess.
Okay, Akbar. A good guess. Why do you think he is Akbar?
I think he is a royalty, but I'm not exactly sure.
Falcons are associated with power and royalty.
Correct. And the title also says prince. So obviously he is a a person of royal
The
family.
painting looks like it's from Indian origin.
Sorry?
The painting looks like it was made from Indian origin.
Yeah,
Compare
it
with
is
other
from India, but it is now in a
Mughal-
museum in
Mughal
The
Los
dressing
Angeles.
looks like a Mughal.
It is a
Yes.
Mughal painting.
Mughal
It is a
painting.
Mughal prince. Now look at the date, 1600 to 1605. So who do you think he can be?
Jahangir.
Who? Yes, Jahangir. He was prince by then, and that's why Jahangir is a title prince here. Now, why am I suddenly, after Egypt, suddenly talking about Jahangir and his painting here? Because this might, you might have already known this, but just to reiterate that Jahangir is the prince that was known for his love for art, and specifically painting as an art. And also he was a great admirer of nature. He was called a he was one of the earliest Indian royalty who invested time, money, dedicated decades for recording naturalism in his court. So what is Jahangir and naturalism? So he used to ask various animal specimens, living specimens were brought to his court, and painters within his courts were asked to create a visual record of these animals and flora and fauna basically. One such record is of the dodo bird. Have you heard of this bird? Here
Yes.
on in the center?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So what is important, like what is so unique about this dodo bird?
It went extinct.
It did.
Anthropogenic extinction.
Yes, yes, it's a man-made extinction, as someone has said rightly. But you know, there was a time in Europe when the dodo bird got extinct, and around late mid 19th century, people stopped believing that there was such thing as dodo, and people used to in Europe, people used to think that this was some myth that was created by the sailors and travelers. There cannot be a bird who cannot be seen anymore, and it's impossible that human actions can make a bird extinct or make a species extinct. But it was important documentation such as Jahangir's painting which actually gave them evidence that okay, Jahangir had a specimen of live dodo in his court, which was later turned into a painting, which suggests that yes, so this bird existed. And later onwards, then the carcasses and specimens of dodo were found in Europe, which are in various European museums, which suggests that the human imagination and its association with nature has now started to fall apart. By this time, people were asking for evidence of for its in order to assess their own consequences. Similarly, lot of non-Indian animals were brought to Jahangir's court, which were later documented in form of miniature paintings. Now, why do you think Jahangir and his obsession with naturalism, depicting natural elements of flora and fauna is important at this point of history? Why do you think is that? Is it important to begin with?
So can you repeat your question?
Why do you think I am talking about Jahangir and his obsession with painting, making a paintings of animals and birds? Why do you think that is important, or is it even important?
Sir,
I-
is
It is very
Sir,
important.
it is important, sir, because we need to keep a track of every species, so we can see how they affect the ecology and if there is any imbalance or not.
yeah,
Yes,
that time
correct, correct.
Jhansi might not know it, but today, if we see those paintings are really important. We get to know what kind of like animals were there, and even if they have gone extinct right now, we do have proofs or evidences of them to be still alive.
Yes, and these are the paintings when the photography was not there. As a result, paintings were important evidence. But one another element that is important, and why Jahangir's who was the Mughal king, commissioning and making these paintings of animals and all the flora and fauna was important, because he was Islamic ruler, which and in Islam, creation of something that the God Almighty has created is considered it was not allowed. So in major Islamic monuments of any time, you will see that you won't find depictions of man or animal in any way, but you will find geometric patterns or floral patterns. Now, this is why Jahangir making these folios is also considered as a very rebellious act by the Mughal king who was ruling his kingdom, which was essentially an Islamic kingdom. So, but which suggests that his love for naturalism surpassed his love and his obsession with nature and painting surpassed all other apprehension which might have worked for other kings and queens of his time. Now let us go from Mughal court to Japan. Have you guys seen this painting before? You must have. It's very
Yes, sir,
popular,
this
right?
is very famous.
It is
Yes,
very
sir.
famous. What do you think it is called?
Ukiyo-e painting.
Okay, it's called Hokusai. The painter
Oh,
was
a
Hokusai, and the
type
painting
of
is the
painting
Great
with
Wave.
The woodblock
Yeah,
painting.
it was made by wood block. Basically, wood were carved into this artwork, and then ink was smeared on the on the wood, and then that was put on the paper. As a result, this beautiful painting used to appear on the paper. Now, Japanese paintings are very important, specifically at this point of time when we are talking about. Let me, can you guys see my screen, or is the PPT still on?
We can see your screen, sir.
You can see my screen?
No, it's PPT.
Okay, just a second. I'll stop share and I want you to guys. Uh, yes. Now, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
The bird painting. Yes,
It's
sir.
called Google Arts and Culture. It's a portal, it's an online free web portal where major art historians, art cultural, art collectives, museums have uploaded a really good scans of artworks, and you can just explore. You will have and like you can spend days and days exploring various arts from any part of the world. So in order to emphasize on the naturalism connection between naturalism and Japanese culture, came here. I wanted you to see the specific this particular example of birds and flowers from Japan. This particular painting is made entirely of ink and paper. Now, what is the one distinct feature that you can see in this painting?
A watercolor texture.
Yeah, the texture is very watercolor-like, which is actually achieved by diluting ink and what else?
Very delicate
It
line
looks
work.
very delicate, yes, because the brush strokes were so minute and so small that the delicacy is achieved through those various kinds of brush strokes. Another thing is that, can you see that
Sir,
nothing?
great detailing given here.
Yes?
Sir, a great detailing has been given here.
Yeah, there is in various parts you can actually see a lot of detailing has been made to give the concept of texture. One more thing that I wanted to highlight is that, can you see, not everything is as clear as the foreground. There is a sense of fog also. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
It gives the feeling of the scenery is very foggy. Now, this particular scenery and the concept of adding fog, or the feeling of fog in painting, which was just let me go back to my PPT, is very unique to Japanese painting style, which actually played a very important role in Indian history. I'll show you how. So Japanese paintings were commercially produced. They were produced for commercial circulation. For example, this is a postcard. And again, you can see it is a very famous Japanese painting, which even Van Gogh like. Have you heard of Van Gogh?
Yes, sir.
So Van
Yes,
Gogh was
sir. I
so
think he was part of the Japonism movement.
correct. Oh, I'm really impressed that someone actually has heard of those terms. So as I was saying that the Japanese art spread outside Japan by this time, and it went all the way to Europe as well, but it also reached India. So this on the left side of the screen, you can actually see Banga Mata or Bharat Mata, which was painted by Abanindranath Tagore in 1905, as opposed to Saraswati, which was painted by Shunso in 1903. What are the similarities in artistic way?
Fog.
Again, the watercolor texture, the delicate work,
Yeah,
and
there
the
is sense of
fogginess,
delicacy, watercolors. There is sense of
very
fogginess.
light coloring.
Yeah, the colors are very light. and are used very carefully, right? So this kind of the fogginess adds the feeling of mysticism, and the reason I wanted to establish this connection is that the Japanese art which traveled outside Japan arrived in India, and 1905 is also important moment in Indian history. What do you think happened in 1905? Any guess?
So can you
Something to do with World War. No.
World War One started in 1914, so that we still have a decade to go. What happened
So
in India in
any
1905?
movement by Mahatma Gandhi?
I think partition of Bengal.
Correct, excellent. It was partition of Bengal that actually created sense of unrest in entire Bengal region, and that is the actually considered as a birth, uh, the moment of birth of a Bengal School of Arts, where they started abandoning Western concept of painting. They started questioning the superiority of Western painting and skills, and they started looking for inspiration towards the east, and that is how the relationship between Indian painters and Japanese painters took place. And as a result, we have this famous painting called Bangamata, which later became Bharat Mata. Now, why is Bharat Mata or Abanindranath Tagore's Bangamata or Bharat Mata is important? Because this is the one of the earliest personification of India as a
It's
nation
an
state.
allegory.
Sorry?
It's an allegory.
Yes, it's an allegory, it's a symbolism, it's a representation of India, which otherwise is a mass of a land. But this is the first time in Indian history you will see that a land, a country is personified into a deity, a divine being. And you can actually see that we are going back again to where when we started with animal and man combination. Now we are just adding humans to our imagination of nature. Now, this is a famous movie. Have you seen the movie called Pather Panchali? You must like, it's okay if you have not. It's a very old movie released in 1955. Have you heard of this movie?
I've seen
No,
it.
but is it by Satyajit Ray?
Yes, excellent. I have wonderful crowd here today. Satyajit Ray, Pather Panchali are like unmistakable combination. Those who love cinema or any kind of art would actually have at least seen this movie at least once. If you, I would recommend you just like it's freely available on YouTube. Just have a look at this wonderful movie. It's actually a trilogy, and you will have
the
really yes.
Apu trilogy? It was
Yeah,
like
it's called Apur Trilogy or Apure Sansar. So let us take a look at this small short clip which I have taken out of this movie. So this is Durga and Apu. These are the two characters. So the flowers that you can see or the weeds, the flowery weeds, they are called Kash Phool, and it's a very common feature in Bengal and Assam, that lands, eastern landscape of India. This is a very iconic in Indian and world cinema to be fair. Now, why do you think I showed you this movie, this particular scene?
It was one of the earliest movies to release in India.
One of the earliest?
Movies like
Not unnecessarily, because this was released in 1955 and movies in India have been made since very early part of 20th century. But the reason I showed you this scene while we are talking about environment and art is because the way Apu and Durga ran towards train and their obsession with train and the whole landscape of train that you could see while it is passing through that the Kash Pathar. Okay? Now, that this is the point which I want to derive at, the railway, arrival of railway. Who can tell me that when was the first railway introduced to in India, and like when was it? Yes.
It was during 18.
Mumbai to Thane.
Yeah, during
1839.
Yeah, 1850, around 1850.
1853. 53.
Yes, it is 1853. And which were the two stations which
Mumbai
were
to
joined?
Thane. Mumbai to
Mumbai.
Thane.
Correct. Mumbai to Thane. This was the first railway route, 1853, when the first railway ran in India. But what is it about railway and environment? Because the introduction of railway in India and its documentation by Samuel Byrne, who was a famous photographer who traveled.
Forest clearing.
Yes, correct. Excellent. The clearance of forest for the purpose of construction of railroads, as well as clearance of railway tracks
And there were many indigenous people as well.
who were displaced. Yes, understand, correct. Many indigenous people, various flora and fauna, as well as various forests were cut down. And it is now it has been researched that the impact of railway on ecology of Indian landscape, India's ecology, was tremendous. It changed the way India's ecology was, and we could never go back to that the pre railway time, because we have lost so much that it cannot be assessed. Also, the lands were changed, entire mountains were cut down to make ways for railways. Wherever it was possible, bridges were constructed. As a result, it was estimated that around to create a 150-mile of railway track, around 20 to 40,000 trees were needed annually, because these tracks needed constant upgradation, constant upkeep, management. As a result, trees were needed again and again to maintain those railway tracks. And as and when Indian Railway, in the Great Indian Peninsular Railway, which was the company which the British East India established to create for creation and functioning of railways in India, the nearly 20 to 40,000 trees initially, and later it became as much as 1.2 lakh acres of wood was needed annually. And how do you get this wood? You maintain forest only for the purpose of cutting the trees down. And this was the time when Britishes passed the laws which was titled and introduced for conservation of forest in India, whereas the entire intention was to take away the land from the tribals and the villagers from the rural area, to take the legal control of those lands and the trees and forest resources, and to divert those entire forest resources, including the woods, towards the maintenance of Indian Railway. So usually railways are looked at as a concept, as an introduction of progress in a particular civilization. But for India, it was also at the cost of the land, its land and ecology, which can never be the same again, which could never and can never be the same again. Now, when we are talking about photographs, this is a very famous photograph. I'm sure a few of you have already heard or seen of this photo.
Oh, Kevin Carter, he committed suicide after facing backlash because he didn't help the girl.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's actually very dicey photograph in terms of ethically. It's very, it can be considered problematic. Just for those people who do not know what the photo is about, that photo is titled "The Vulture and Little Girl." So you can actually see, you can actually see a vulture here and a girl here, which was actually identified as girl, but later it turns out that was a boy, little boy. And this actually is a photo from Sudan from 1993. Kevin Carter was a photojournalist, and he was commissioned to go to Sudan when it was going through civil war, and as a result of which there was a famine in Sudan. Due to this famine, many people were heavily dependent on international food aid. And this particular child that you can see in the photograph was also starving, like millions of Sudanese in that time. Kevin, who was the photographer, photojournalist, saw this particular scene, and it like amazed you that the concept of this photo and the time it took for him to take this photo. How much time do you think he needed to take this photo?
What, sir? Can you repeat?
Like, how much time do you think he took to create to make this photo?
Sir, an hour.
Yes, almost an hour, because he waited for that particular vulture to come as close as possible to the girl.
Yeah, and that's why like there was a controversy that he should have actually like instead of
The
waiting
girl.
an hour and
Just save that girl rather
yeah.
than.
So the girl or the boy, who later turned out to be boy, was alive. He survived.
But he
And
died.
no,
You
no, the child survived. But the thing is that Kevin actually shushed away the vulture later after creating the photo. When he got the photo, he shushed away the vulture. But he was criticized for not helping the girl thereafter. Which is when he saved the girl from or the child from the vulture, he did not pick the child up and did not carry the child to the nearest help station, to which the child was actually trying to walk to. Now the reason is various people give various reason, because he was a photojournalist and he was under severe observation by the rebel group who were taking control of things by this time in this part of the Sudan. Also, there was the photojournalists were warned about diseases that they can carry if they get into physical touch with the Sudanese or African population. As a result, he did not do it, and it was not unique for something that he did, because the photojournalists which were traveling from West to Africa were never intervene. Were never were asked not to intervene in any way physically with any of the native population. So he did something which all other photojournalists were doing, but the publication of this particular photo, and then he won a Pulitzer Prize for photojournalism, because he raised awareness about the trouble that the Sudanese and African people were having. But it was also counterproductive, because people criticized him, as you already have told, you already have shared that with us, that people criticized him for not doing enough to help the child. As a result, after winning the Pulitzer Prize, he committed suicide. Yes, Ms. Sangam. Okay, I'll just go ahead then. Another last photo, last visuals that one of the last visuals that I have to share is a very recent, unfortunately, again associated with the concept of death, which is the bodies of 6 giraffes that were lying in a village in Kenya in 2021. And this particular photograph is because it raised alarm regarding the climate change and the drought situation, the scarcity of water and food grains that human and animals were facing in entirety of Africa. And the situation is still very similar and not drastically different from what you are seeing. As a result, these photojournalists and their efforts have created us aware to the rest of the world about what is actually happening on the ground in areas which are suffering severely due to the climate changes and ecological degradation, which we might not otherwise have any sensitization about. So this particular presentation, this session was all about to make you aware that how photos, images of any kind, of any time, can be used as a valid source of history, and history can be narrated using them. It doesn't have to always be dates, tables, and names and of the kings and queen. I hardly took any particular names, and I hardly gave you any dates today, right? But what we did is learned through using theme of ecological history, environmental history. We pick up the theme, and we use images, which is called visual culture of those times, all the way from prehistoric times to modern day. And we understood the use of those images, circulation of those images, and how they can help us to understand history, which is not so conventional. In Azim Premji University, we are going to introduce these elements of this in our training when and that is how we want to change training in history, create something new in teaching and learning of history. So thank you.
Right. Thanks, Ajay. I think you kind of changed the way we should study history.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, I never knew there's a sub-discipline called visual culture studies. But in the interest of time, we should quickly take questions. I think the quiz will come out very soon. You can stop sharing, Ajay. Of course, you can relax. You've been speaking continuously, and
Thank you.
to me, this was almost like sitting in a teacher class. Huh? You really, this is like sitting in a class in the history. But yeah, we'll go in the order. Sangam, Mahika, and Atika, your question. Others, you were anyway. It was a very engaging session. Many questions, Ajay, you were answering on the spot. But Sangam, what's your question? You can unmute yourself. Oh, you can. Yeah, I think everybody can unmute if you want. If Sangam, if you have no question, then I'm going to Mahika.
Can I speak, Mahika?
Yes.
So I'm from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, and I had this question that what if these like paintings were tampered and you don't know it is tampered, because there were some paintings, they were art movements after World War One also, like surrealism and Dadaism. There were many art movements. What if like the paintings we have were actually tampered and we are not sure that they were actually tampered with?
Yeah, excellent question. So visual culture also is concerned about, as we have seen that it takes help from art history, anthropology, as well as um, media studies. So in the image can be of any form. It can be of prehistoric in nature, in material, or it can be digital, or it can be a painting on paper, on canvas. It can be anywhere, but there is a training that we receive as a student of visual studies and museum studies, where we can differentiate between different layers of paints that can be that must have been added later. So the museum studies in conservation science, we study about identifying the establishing authenticity of art, dating a particular art and painting without any information about it, and also through through scientific survey, scientific examination, you can actually tell what part was painted over and after over each other. So it is very much possible that most of the paintings were, that's how paintings were smuggled across across are smuggled across the world. Various paintings have been cut into pieces, later joined in order to save taxes, and because they were stolen from somewhere else. As a result, this is a practice which was earlier very prevalent and is still unfortunately happening in lots of parts of the world. But there exists a method of scientific survey where you can scan the paints, layers of painting, and without harming a painting, you can actually tell which layer comes first and which was the original and which is the later one.
And there were sculptures as well, right? We just discussed about paintings, but there were sculptures, and now these days they clone the sculptures so that they can present it to the people in the museums.
Yes, that is again, unfortunately, there exists a whole underground market for that particular practice, where sculptures, specifically stone and metal sculptures, are made fresh, are either stolen from their original owners or temples, and then smuggled outside the native country, or they are made new and they are made to look like old, which is by adding a layer of patina to it. But again, science has evolved enough. Conservation and museum studies, people know how to actually make difference between the original and the one, because the original metal sculpture, even if both of the sculptures are looking old, but they will have wear and tear that can only happen through particular age of in the component of a metal, which will not be present in the new or fraud object.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
If nothing works, we'll go for carbon dating. I don't know whether it's still.
So carbon dating is generally used, people like any dating in his for history is carbon dating, but it's not like that, because carbon is very carbon dating, as the name suggests, is like dating of carbon within any element. So you can date a carbon in human, animal, or plant, so, or anything that is made by these things, like bones or baskets or clothes. But for metal, there is a different dating technique. For pottery, there is a thermoluminescent technique. So there are techniques, there are dating techniques, obviously. And yeah, so we can actually know what is right and what is authentic.
Interesting. Yeah. Sangam, I think she's back. I don't know, Sangam. I also see a group of school students who have joined together. That's so nice to see. It's not only 90 that we see here, 89 that we see here. Some of them have joined. So if you want to ask a question now, Sangam Mishra, that's the name I'm seeing. You've raised your hand. You can ask. Otherwise, I'm going to. Yeah. What's your question? Please. Yeah, that's. And if you can tell me, where is the school? You've all joined as a group. I thought schools are closed now. Oh no, they've shut down the cameras. So, Atika, what's your question? Then Fatima is there.
Hello, sir. My name is Atika. I'm from Madhya Pradesh. I have no.
I'm sorry, we
want to
lost.
say something. Thanks, sir.
The voice is
I'm
breaking for me,
audible.
Ajay. Can you, in between, it was a very short break. Can you repeat what you just said?
Hello, sir. My name is Atika. I'm from Madhya Pradesh. I have no question, but I want to say something. Thank you, sir. I have never read history in this way. Thanks for a wonderful session, sir.
Thank you, Atika. I
Oh,
hope you liked
yeah.
it.
Such comments are also useful. If you're in Madhya Pradesh, I don't know how far you're from, which part of Madhya Pradesh, but if you're anywhere near Bhopal, come to the
No,
campus,
sir.
see the
From
campus.
Dewas.
Where's the Devas? Okay. But if you're coming to that part of the town, do make a visit to the Bhopal campus. It's a wonderful campus, and Ajay will be able
Yes,
to.
sir.
And
Thank you so much.
recently he also organized something called Museum on Wheels. He got a museum in a bus to come all the way from Mumbai to Bhopal. So maybe we'll come to Devas next time, Ajay. We're doing it next year. So yeah, Fatima, your question?
Yes, sir. Sir, have you seen any cases of smuggling or discovered any mysteries during your studies?
Yeah, I'm also student of museum studies, and I'm going to introduce that particular course here in Azim Premji Bhopal, University Bhopal campus. So as a part of my training in museum, we have studied various cases which happened previously in order to take lessons from them. Like what to avoid when you are curating a particular exhibition, how to increase your security, what are factors that we need to make sure. For example, have you heard of the museum called Salarjung Museum? It's a
Salar
very
Jung, the one in Hyderabad.
Yes. So Salarjung had very infamous robbery in the 1960s and 70s. It became so bad, the case, because a lot of valuable bronze statues were stolen from there. And the repercussions of that ended up in the parliament, that the parliament discussions actually show us that everyone in Indian politics were concerned about the security of museum objects. So you can actually see the visual culture and the museum studies, these are all connected with the rest of the concepts of social sciences, which is politics, economics, and other way, and how these how history how telling and retelling of history by museums is also considered valuable and important factor by politicians and organizations of various level. So, and that is why we have studied the various cases in various museums about how the theft had happened and how to avoid them. So the Salarjung was one example.
No, but have you seen anything happen
No,
like
no, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I have not seen that happen. Otherwise, it would have been because once an object is lost from its track, it is loss for humanity, and then you lose a valuable data. So it's not a good thing of for losing even a single object. It can be a small a pot shard, and it can contain valuable information, right? So it should be staying where it is, recorded and being studied, being available for study, and then not get lost. So I have not personally seen it, and I wish I do not get to witness such act.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think the last question for the day, and then I think we exceed the time. Mahika, what's your question? Or is it yeah, the team Sangam Mishra? Are you going to ask something now? Okay, we'll go to Mahika.
It's not a question. You were talking about museum on wheels. So we have actually, our school had like done this seminar, and we had actually seen the museum on wheels. We had like seen everything. And then we have also like, I have visited Azim Premji twice and thrice
Very
for
nice.
a biology workshop, and way before for biology beyond books. And we did meet few people there. And last time we visited your library, and it was amazing. I saw like Constitution of India and various archives which were there in the university, and I was like, this is dream. Weird. I asked like the faculty there that can we just visit here for the library? Nothing else. We'll just sit here and read all the things. We have no problem.
Correct. That's the thing. I mean, all the network of universities. The idea is that we behave like a public spirited university, right? So, thank you. Which class are you in now?
10th.
10th. Yeah, right. So, I mean, today was not a session about our programs, but just going back to what Ajay was saying, the museum studies is an area that probably we'll also offer as a minor. So when you're doing history in major, or it could be anything, you could do a social science as a major, economics major, you could study museum studies separately as a minor. So we're looking at designing minors which could lead to professions, as a museum curator or things like that. So, yeah. And on that note, on positive note on museum studies, which is also Ajay's favorite area, we should close the session. So thank you for Ajay and of course Ayushi for the first session. And we had a wonderful time. I mean, there are some questions asking.
Sir, sorry for
Yes.
interrupting.
Yeah.
Are there any events planned for the Bangalore campus?
Bangalore, the thing is, see, we're overwhelmed with the number of campus visits. Okay, so every Friday we get sometimes 2 groups coming. So in that sense, we've not planned anything for the Bangalore campus other than organizing campus visits. Okay, that's what is happening. Somebody is asking whether we are going to do a session on maths. We did one on data analysis at the Bangalore, at the Bhopal campus in April. Tomorrow's session, I think we're going to close the summer workshop, online summer workshop tomorrow with 3 sessions. Yes. The first one is called Farm to Factory. Second one is Understanding Budgets, which comes in the news only on the day when the budgets come in. The third one, we're going to talk about who is a social scientist, right? So we have, in fact, 3 sessions with 4 speakers, and that's going to be a wrap. And that's my colleague Sadaf, who's been working hard behind the scenes. Again, at Bhopal, Sadaf, any closing comments that you want to make? You can say, otherwise we will wrap it up.
I've shared the quiz link in the comment section. I hope everyone has received.
Yeah. That's important. If you want a digital certificate from Azim Premji University, you should participate in the quiz, and also you can give us a feedback, what you felt. Is there anything that we should do more? Are there any thematics that you want to listen to, like mathematics? Because we're also learning as a university and looking at different formats to engage with high school students who are asking questions like university students. Okay, so
They are
on that
well
note, I'm sorry, Ajay.
They have a lot of information already, so which is good.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm just amazed. I've been observing because I usually observe the questions that children are they're not children. They are asking And and those questions are amazing. So the information is there, but how do we as educators help them connect those dots?
Yes.
That's the thing. I think what bothers me as a boomer, as they call, is that there are Instagram reels saying that school subjects are not of any use. I've never used trigonometry in my life. They're absolutely wrong. We need when it helps you wire your brain in a particular way.
Yeah.
And the person saying that mathematics is not useful has created their Instagram video in a ratio of 4:3 or 9:16, timing it for 5 to 10 seconds so that they know they're using mathematics and saying that maths is not useful. So I think as a university, what we're trying to do is develop interest in those school subjects and they become experts, historians, and they, how do they understand the craft of an historian? And both have changed the way I looked at history because I also speak to somebody like Subbu, who is there, C.N. Subramaniam, right? And the young historians like you has given a completely different dimension of historians of the 21st century is going to look at history very differently from what people looked at history, right? So yeah, I think the world is in safe hands. Okay. On that note,
Thank you.
bye. Thank you so much. Bye.